Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1222, 1222, Sunday, August the 16th, 2020. Welcome back to another edition of TowerGate where we're covering the Spygate story and the Spygate story only. Let's take a look at what's been going on in the last 24 hours in this caper. Well, we learned from Lindsey Graham, who was on Sean Hannity on Friday night. Sitting in for Hannity was Trey Gowdy. And so Lindsey Graham tells Gowdy that he's learned from Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray that it was Bill Priestep who gave the briefing to the Senate Intelligence Committee. And apparently there were 4 FBI agents with him, and we do not know who those agents were. So it was Priestep who gave that briefing to the Senate Intelligence Committee where he basically lied. Let's see what happens, because Lindsey Graham also said that Priestep will be appearing to the Senate Judiciary Committee for a deposition this week. That would be behind closed doors. Be a lot of so-called classified information, although anything having to do with Spygate should no longer be considered classified information. It was all a hoax. We can talk about it all publicly in front of God and everyone, because there's no classified information. It was opposition research paid for by the Rotten Reverend, carried out by her friends, public and private. So anyway, I guess we'll find out how Priestep's going to try to spin his way out of this one. Now, Priestep's a pretty heavy hitter. He married into a very wealthy family. His wife's family are serious, big-time left-wing Democrat activists. Very, very wealthy. They're into a lot of different things, banking, things and such. So Priestep married into a very wealthy, powerful family. And so he's a guy who can afford to pay some very expensive lawyers. Whether or not he'll come clean and tell the truth, I don't know. But he laid low for a very long time. He was one of those guys who seemed to be on the outside for a very long time. But in recent weeks, particularly with this one memo we got where he's talking about what we should do with Flynn, should we try to get him fired, should we try to catch him in a perjury trap, exactly what we're trying to do here. And we now know that he was on the inside baseball with Strzok, McCabe, and the whole group. So this guy is probably a little more clever. He's not quite as dumb as his compadres, but he got caught up in it. He's up to his eyeballs in it. And I don't see where he has any way out at this point. He's caught, right along with all the rest of these people. So I guess we'll wait for Lindsey Graham. I don't know. I expect at some point these hearings he's having behind closed doors, at some point I assume there'll be some transcripts released, probably not till after the election. But I don't think we're going to have to wait that long. I think that Durham is probably going to get way ahead of Ron Johnson and Lindsey Graham. So I think that we'll hear something more about Priestep before the election. But he's the guy. So I read through the charging document on Kevin Clinesmith. I would encourage all of you to read it. It's very interesting. It tells you a lot about John Durham. You know, because he doesn't do press conferences, he doesn't leak, he doesn't do any of that. But if you really want some insight as to what kind of a investigator Durham is, you'll learn a lot from reading this charging document on Clinesmith. It's only 5 pages long, but what you'll see when you read it is that Durham is very thorough. But he does a couple other things in here. He drops a couple bombshells on other people. And I don't know if he did this intentionally or if it just, because he had to put it in the charging document, it's there. Or if he put it in there because he wanted to send a message to the other coup plotters. It's very, very tricky when you read it. But if you look at the way that he writes out this charging document on Clinesmith, you can tell he slams every door shut that Clinesmith could have possibly used to take an exit. He slams all the exit doors shut. He leaves Clinesmith no way out. None. I mean, he locks him down. And it's a very impressive document, really, for 5 pages of a charging document. It shows you that Durham does turn over every rock. He leaves no stone unturned. This guy is a very detailed investigator. He's definitely a digger. And, I mean, he lays down such a slam dunk case. There's no way. Again, he slammed all the doors shut. There was nowhere for Clinesmith to go. He was trapped. He had no choice but to plead guilty and cooperate. And I imagine he's... And remember, we're just now hearing about this. He's probably been singing to Durham now for weeks and weeks, maybe months. And if you look at this charging document, there's about 2 paragraphs in there where he's discussing something that I think is where he's sending a message to other coup plotters. And it's basically the story that we reported on a couple of days ago, where we learned that the Crossfire Hurricane team was briefed back in August of 2016. Now, the original date, I think Chuck Ross in the Daily Caller wrote the original story I read, and they had the date of August the 2nd. The date is different with in the charging document. In the charging document, Durham has the date of August the 17th of 2016. Think how long ago that was. I mean, it's literally like 2 weeks after they opened Crossfire Hurricane. 2 weeks after that, the CIA sends this memorandum over to, as Durham says in his own words, this is exactly the way he words it. He says, August 17, 2016, prior to approval of the first FISA warrant, the OGA, other government agency, meaning CIA, provided certain members of the Crossfire Hurricane team the memorandum indicating that Individual 1 was approved as an operating contact from 2008 to 2017. The first 3 FISA applications did not include this information. He says a lot right there, and I don't know that he needed to put that in there for the benefit of his charging statement against Clinesmith. That really has not a lot to do specifically. I mean, it wouldn't have affected his case against Clinesmith at all. So why does Durham put that in there? Why does Durham put it in there that he has read and has obtained a memorandum that was given to certain members of the Crossfire Hurricane team back on August the 17th of 2016 from the CIA, telling them that Carter Page was approved as an operational contact from 2008 to 2017. In fact, considers him in good standing and would welcome any information from Carter Page. And then Durham says that the first 3 FISA apps did not include this information. What's he telling us right there? Boom. He's saying that the first 3 FISA applications were illegal. So we've been waiting to hear. Horowitz pretty much blew up the 3 renewals, but he said the jury's out on number 1, the original FISA. Well, there you go. John Durham blows up FISA number 1 right there. That takes care of all 4. But what's more important, he says that certain members. Now, Durham knows who those people are. He knows who provided that memorandum. It's a female that works at the CIA, and she's public relations. She was the one who was dealing with Clinesmith and Operation Crossfire Hurricane team. She sent both of them essentially the same information. And so the people who were briefed in the Crossfire Hurricane team on this, he's sending a powerful message to them. He's saying, hey, I got Clinesmith, and as you can see, I got him right now, and he's pleading guilty to this crime, which carries a 5-year prison sentence. Making a false statement to the FBI is a 5-year prison sentence. Now, he probably won't get 5 years, especially if he gives up some big fish, which is exactly what I think he's doing. But this is where Durham is telling other people who were involved in this, you better come talk to me. I got your buddy Clinesmith, and I got him for falsifying a document about whether or not Carter Page was a spy. But I want you to know that I've got a memorandum in my hand that's telling me that back in August of 2016, certain members of the Crossfire Hurricane team received the same information. In other words, if you're one of those people, certain members, and Durham knows who they are, who received that, you're in the same boat that Clinesmith's in. You better come and talk to me and do what he's doing. Plead guilty to a lesser crime and give it up. Give me what you got. Give me all of it. I want all of it. That's what he's doing here. It's a very, very good little charging document because it does two things. Number one, like I said, it nails Clinesmith to the wall. He has no way out. Durham covers every base. I mean, it's total. It's an annihilation. I mean, really, there's no way you could beat this rap. So that's why it turned into a plea deal. And this is how Durham operates. Apparently, he doesn't drop on you until he's got you 100% slammed all the exit doors. You have nowhere to go. He leaves you no option but to cooperate. And he's sending a message in this charging document on Clinesmith to the other people who were involved. Hey, guess what? I got this guy, and I got you too. And you better, if you're smart, you'll do what he's doing. You'll come in and talk to me and cut a deal. Don't wait for me to come looking for you. He's telling them right here in this charging document. And you got to know that it had to be the top people on the Crossfire Hurricane team because that's who this information will be relayed to. It would have been Strzok. It would have been Page. It would have been Soma. It would have been Pientka. The same people. And that certainly would have went to Pre-Step. And that means if it went to Pre-Step, Comey and McCabe would have known about it as well. Something like this would not be overlooked. This is big information. So that is what Durham is looking for one of them to come in, or several of them, whoever were those people who got that briefing back in 2016 or got that document back in 2016. He wants them to come in and Durham wants them to come in and say, who else did you share this with? All you guys, Crossfire Hurricane team, you, and you, certain members, got this. Now, who did you give this information to? Did you tell Pre-Step? Did you tell Comey? Did you tell McCabe? Did it make it to Obama? These guys are toast, man. I'm telling you what. I am telling you what. So yes, I think you should definitely take a look at that charging document. I only read it once. I bet if I read it 2 or 3 more times, I'd find some more things in there. But anyway, I highly recommend you read the John Durham charging document on Kevin Clinesmith. It's, I think you'll get a much better idea of exactly how thorough John Durham is and why you do not want this guy to get his hooks into you. Once he drops your name, he's not going to drop your name unless he's got you. He leaves you no way out. Something else that was noticed by Andrew McCarthy that I've heard no one else point out, and this is also in the charging document. It went right past me. I didn't even catch it because I'm not a lawyer. But Andrew McCarthy certainly caught it. He is a former prosecutor. And this is something else that's probably got Durham's head spinning and probably making him go, wow. Wow. I can't believe I'm even onto something like this. But Durham's head has got to be spinning. I mean, I'm telling you, just from what we've learned here in the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks, this thing is much, much worse than I ever thought it was. I knew it was bad. I knew it was really bad. I had no idea it was this bad, and I think we're going to find out things in the next couple of weeks and months that are just going to blow all of our minds. No matter how bad you thought this was, I think we're all going to find out it was much worse. Check this out. So McCarthy is reading through the charging document just like I did, and he notices that that Durham continues to describe Operation Crossfire Hurricane as a criminal investigation. He's not referring to it as a counterintelligence operation. He's referring to it as a criminal investigation. And he does it on purpose, because every time he uses the word Crossfire Hurricane, he denotes it by either adding before or after that it was a criminal investigation, which is 180 degrees the opposite of everything we've been told. It's what Sally Yates kept falling back on in her testimony. Well, you got to remember, this was a counterintelligence investigation. Remember the exchange she got into with Ted Cruz? where he was trying to say, well, actually, it was a criminal investigation. No, no, no. This was a counterintelligence operation. No, no, no. John Durham has obviously assessed everything that went on and determined that the things that were done and why they were done would not denote a counterintelligence operation, but rather a criminal investigation, which requires a whole different set of predicates. You practically need nothing to open up a counterintelligence operation. Somebody whispers in someone's ear and you can open up a counterintelligence operation. But to open up a criminal investigation, to get FISA warrants, to put in spies, to do all these things in a criminal investigation requires much higher level of evidence, of suspicion, or what have you. And this is very important. This is, you can see now what Durham has figured out and how he's going to prosecute this. He's going to blow this entire thing apart. He is not going to allow them to continue to twist this and make it look like a criminal counterintelligence investigation, when in fact it was actually a criminal investigation. Not only that, if you read through this charging document, you will see where Durham states clearly throughout this that this was not really an investigation even into Trump, Russia, and all this stuff. That was a hoax. The entire thing was a hoax. They knew there was no Trump-Russia collusion. They knew it back in 2016. Even before the election, they knew it was all just a bunch of garbage paid for by Hillary Clinton. They knew it all. So did the Mueller team. And so did Comey and McCabe and all the rest. So John Durham has figured out that this was never a counterintelligence operation, that it was in fact a criminal investigation, which was being run by counterintelligence and Comey. But more importantly, Durham says this was a criminal investigation into FARA violations. All the things that they were doing were about foreign agent registration activities going on with people in the Trump campaign, because they had no reason to be launching a counterintelligence operation. There was no evidence of it. It was all hoax, and they knew it. So publicly, out in front of everybody, for the news, for the politics of it and everything else, they pretended to be running a counterintelligence operation based on Trump-Russia collusion, when in fact, in reality, what they were really doing and covering up was they were running a criminal investigation into FARA violations. It's clear. He lays it out right there in the charging document. He never refers to it as a counterintelligence operation, and he never talks about it being an investigation into Trump people dealing with Russia. It's 100% a criminal investigation, and it's about FARA violations. Things that normally don't even get handled through criminal investigations. Normally, they find a FARA violation. They actually send the person a letter and say, hey, are you registered? Because remember, you got to be registered to be talking to that lobbyist. Just so you know, go ahead and get registered. Just pay a fee and fill out this form. This is all you need to do, and you'll be good. That's how these things are normally handled. So, essentially, what Durham has figured out is that another hoax, which is part of the many hoaxes that we've been looking at, and why this is beginning to look like something much, much more than what we could ever have imagined, is that this entire thing was not just a hoax in the sense that it wasn't true about the, Trump-Russia. They knew it wasn't true. They knew it was bullshit. They knew the dossier was bullshit. They knew Steele was bullshit. They knew his source was bullshit. This whole thing was a complete smokescreen. It was all a hoax. But there was a real investigation going on. It wasn't a counterintelligence operation, and it wasn't about Trump and Russia. It was a criminal investigation, and it was about FARA violations. That totally changes the game for Durham, because now a whole different set of standards come into play. See, under a counterintelligence operation, a lot of the things that they did, even though they were shady as hell, probably wouldn't be considered illegal, and they knew that, which is why they did it that way. But Durham is not going to let them play that game. He is going to properly frame it for what it was, a criminal investigation into FARA violations, which has a completely different set, a completely different standard for what you need to open these types of investigations, what you need to get FISA warrants, what you need to send spies in, and all these other things. Durham is going to blow this entire thing apart. And of course, as we know, this is probably it. This explains it. This answers the question I asked about a month ago when we learned that Barr had asked Jeff Jensen, after doing such good work digging up the Flynn stuff, he asked Jensen to join the Durham team, and he specifically wanted him to help Durham with something that Durham had gotten pulled off onto, and that was what Durham had discovered that had happened after 2017, having to do with the Mueller investigation. So to try to alleviate some of the work off of Durham, Barr asked Jennings to take over the part of it to look into the Mueller investigation. And this is exactly why. Because at some point Durham went in and told Barr, you know what? This entire counterintelligence operation, this wasn't a counterintelligence operation. And it had nothing to do with Trump Russia. They weren't even looking at that. That was all just smokescreen. These guys were running a criminal investigation about FARA violations. That's why Jeff Jensen is now locked into investigating the Mueller investigation itself. That's what Jensen's working on right now. And we already know this guy gets results. Big time. So this is a major, major bomb. And this is right there in the charging document. Again, sending a powerful message to the coup plotters. Guess what? I just blew up your phony counterintelligence operation. It did not exist. It was a hoax. And now we're investigating you, Weissman, Mueller, Zelensky, and all the whole team. I think we got 22 of them. This has just blown these people completely up. Durham is on the job, my friends, and this changes everything because it's the predication issue. Counterintelligence operation, you can do all sorts of things without having hardly any evidence whatsoever for predication. Not true in a criminal investigation. Not true in a criminal investigation. Works totally differently. That is where Durham is. That is how he's going to nail people. They could have slid off the hook if they could characterize this as a counterintelligence operation, but not anymore. Now it's a criminal investigation, and that changes everything. There's going to be a lot of very nervous people if their attorneys read this. If their attorneys read this, believe me, you're going to see a lot more people running to Durham to cop plea deals. He's already told them two things. Number one, I just blew up your hoax. It wasn't a counterintelligence operation about Trump Russia. You knew that was bullshit. It was a criminal investigation, FARA violations. What was your predicate? You didn't have one. Uh-oh. Gotcha. And guess what? You guys knew several members, and I know who you are, from Crossfire Hurricane, were briefed that Carter Page was straight up back in August of 2016. 2 weeks after you opened Crossfire Hurricane, you knew Page was clean. Gotcha. This is very, very bad news for Silly Sally and Comey, because they're the two who were selling this as a counterintelligence operation. And the very reason they were selling it that way is because they could get away with a lot of things they couldn't get away with if it were actually a criminal investigation. But Durham has just told them, guess what? I just figured out. It actually was a criminal investigation. Silly Sally and Comey better lawyer up. Silly Sally just perjured her ass off in those hearings a week ago. I'm sure Durham was watching. He's probably laughing. Think, oh yeah? Counterintelligence operation, Sally? We'll wait and see. The specific violation of the federal code that Clinesmith is charged with is Section 1001A-3 of the Federal Revised Code, of the Federal Penal Code. It carries a 5-year prison sentence. He committed the crime on June the 29th of 2017. Not only did Sally Yates lie about whether or not this was a criminal investigation, trying to call it a counterintelligence operation, but Comey, in his testimony to Congress under oath on live TV, Durham's got the video, told the committee that the FISA he was seeking was for a counterintelligence operation, not a criminal investigation. That's what he said. Oh, this is not a criminal investigation. It's a counterintelligence operation. Keep in mind, there's a huge difference. To you, me, the average person, non-lawyer, you wouldn't know the difference. Criminal, counterintelligence, who knows? But there's a huge difference in terms of predication and what kind of evidence you need to open that type of investigation and the type of documents you must create when you're opening these. If you're going to bring an informant in a criminal investigation, you got to open up, you got to say why you're bringing in that informant. You got to get it approved pretty high up. 2 or 3 high-level people sign off on it. You got to state why he's going in, what he's going in for, how long he's going to be there. There's got to be daily reports. You got to contact your confidential informant once you put him in there. Like every 48 or 72 hours, you got to get a report back from him. This all has to be documented. Everything they're doing has to be documented. None of that happened. So, essentially, Comey was conducting an operation that was functioning as both a counterintelligence operation and a criminal investigation. And again, Durham has figured this out. It's a mess. And it's going to get a lot of people charged. He's got Comey right there under oath telling Congress, this is not a criminal investigation, it's a counterintelligence operation. Oh yeah? Durham's got the evidence of just the opposite. It was a criminal investigation investigating FARA violations. Paul Sperry tweeted out yesterday that, in case we all didn't know it, Clinesmith's closest contact with another lawyer at the FBI, his closest FBI lawyer contact throughout this entire process that he was doing all this, was Lisa Page. Lisa Page. She better lawyer up too, by the way. Something else that Durham's obviously figured out by now. I wouldn't be surprised if he knows who put Halper, Downer, and Misfit into the game by now. He might know that by now. We don't know. We don't know what he knows. But we do know one thing. Someone put Halper, Downer, and Misfit into the game. And it may have come from this little group of guys over in Cambridge. That little Cambridge 4 team that Schlage talks about. Andrew and Dearlove and Halper and Steele. They're probably the ones that brought in Misfit, Halper, and Downer. I mean, Misfit and Downer. Halper's already one of them. Something that we talked about, oh boy, this has been a long time ago. Probably not quite a year ago, but, you know, it's been a long time. Can't remember exactly when, but probably not a year ago, but less than a year, but more than 6 months probably, somewhere in that range. And it's something that a lot of people stumbled onto at the time. It's when we first heard the name Stephen Soma. And I think it was Dan Bongino or someone he gets information from had done some digging and found out that Soma was Halper's handler. And remember, I.G. Horowitz, Huckleberry Horowitz, tells us that it was Soma who made the most errors at the FBI regarding the FISA warrants and the general investigation Crossfire Hurricane, which we now know is actually a criminal investigation. So back then, we found out that there was this link. And I think that Durham has probably stumbled onto this, and probably a long time ago. But it's crucial. You know, when we discovered it, however many months ago this was, it looked shady at the time. We knew there was something probably going on. But now, with this additional information we have today, it looks a lot more damning, I guess you would say. So, about, I guess it was probably 9 months ago, less than a year, more than 6 months maybe. Someone who Bongino may have been Technofog or one of these guys that he looks at had learned that, of course, we knew that Mike Gaeta was Steele's FBI handler in Rome. He's the guy that Steele first went to in the summer of 2016 with his information. There were 2 more additional meetings there in Rome with Steele and Mike Gaeta. And so he, at that time, became sort of Steele's handler, FBI agent Michael Gaeta. At the same time, we learned about 9 months ago, because we knew about Gaeta and Steele a long time ago. That was probably 2 years ago we learned about Gaeta and Steele. But then we learned that Soma is the handler for Halper. So we've got Gaeta being the handler for Steele, operating out of the FBI in Rome, and we've got Soma as the handler for Halper, and he's operating out of D.C., Southern District of New York, I believe. The Southern District of New York field office. But then Bongino discovers through one of his sources that Gaeta and Soma had worked together for years at the Southern District of New York, were very good friends, and maintained regular contact. So now things start to look a lot more interesting. So Steele's handler and Halper's handler are 2 FBI agents who had previously worked together for 10 years or so, knew each other very well, and were regularly communicating. And isn't it interesting that Steele is producing information that he's feeding to the FBI and to the State Department and to Confusion GPS, probably being fed to him and he's feeding it right back, or being fed to him by Halper. And Halper is getting the same information. Halper's getting the same information as Steele. And Steele and Halper's handlers are friends, know each other very well. I'm sure this is all just a bunch of coincidence. As I said in yesterday's video, I think Stephen Soma is probably likely, if not the next, maybe Baker will beat him to it, but I think Soma and Baker are probably the next 2 to cop plea deals. Soma is definitely a guy you want to sit down and talk to, and you want to get a plea deal with that guy, because he was definitely an inside player. And he can probably tell you who put Misfit and Downer into the game, because he was Halper's handler. He's very good friends with Gaeta, Steele's handler. And we know that those 2, Steele and Halper, were part of this Cambridge 4, as described by Schlage, who cooked up the Flynn stuff. Again, it goes back to the direction the information was flowing. And it goes back to what Steele said at the very beginning, in his very first deposition in the BuzzFeed case. I did not go out looking for the information. It came to me. I relied on collectors who had intermediaries, who went to sources. All smoke and mirrors. I'm telling you again, folks, we're going to find out this was all inside baseball. This was all inside baseball. These guys all know each other. They're all connected to each other. They're all running the same scam together. The information is literally being laundered through Christopher Steele. And it's coming through Fusion GPS, the FBI, and Perkins Coie via the Clinton team. And the resources that they were using. Probably the Brookings Institution, people like that. Man, oh man. I think Durham's all over this thing. He knows every bit of this. Based on that charging document and the messages he's sending in that charging document, putting things in there he didn't need to say. They're there to send a message to the other guys that he's blown them up. And now it's a new ball game. It wasn't a counterintelligence operation. It was a criminal investigation on FARA violations. Different ball game. Uh-oh. See you next time. Bye.